Darlene Gentry captivated all with her striking beauty. She possessed fair hair and a captivating, broad smile. During her school days, she reigned as homecoming queen, often referred to as Barbie by many. Darlene exhibited an outgoing personality, consistently drawing attention and attracting numerous admirers. Following high school, she enrolled at Texas State Technical College, pursuing studies to become a dental assistant. It was there that he met Keith, who was then studying welding design. They instantly developed a deep affection for one another and were widely regarded as the college's most attractive couple. Upon graduating, Darlene anticipated a marriage proposal, but Keith, unready for matrimony at that time, led to the couple's separation. Darlene subsequently relocated to Dallas, securing employment with a dentist. However, after an unfortunate incident in Dallas where her car was stolen, she decided to return to her hometown, a place Keith had longed for her to be all along. Upon learning of Darlene's return, Keith visited her and proposed they rekindle their relationship. She assented, her affection for him having also remained strong. Keith proposed to her in 1999, and they were wed. Before long, Darlene welcomed 3 sons, born in quick succession. Even with the arrival of 3 children, Darlene maintained an excellent physique, meticulously caring for herself and indulging in shopping. Keith earned a substantial income, allowing her to indulge her desires without restraint. They constructed a home in a charming neighborhood, right next door to Keith's parents. Darlene, finding her dental work dissatisfying, accepted a part-time position as a school nurse. Keith's work frequently necessitated travel, leaving Darlene to virtually single-handedly manage childcare, household duties, and her job. Despite this, she never voiced complaints and consistently appeared content and cheerful, with their marriage seemingly robust and stable. Recognizing Darlene's struggles, Keith secured a different job nearer to home, aiming to devote more time to his family and assist his wife. However, this new position offered a lower salary, eliminating funds for Darlene's extravagant purchases. Yet, she appeared unwilling to acknowledge this reality, persisting in expensive purchases, utilizing credit cards, and accumulating significant debts. Keith repeatedly urged his wife to exercise greater frugality with her expenditures until he could secure another well-paying job, but she seemed either oblivious or unwilling to heed his advice. Consequently, they began to frequently dispute over their financial troubles. At 6 a.m. on November 5, 2005, 31-year-old Darlene Gentry placed a 911 call, reporting that she had awakened to discover burglars had infiltrated their residence and shot her husband. She stated, "I got up this morning, I slept in the nursery with the kids today, the back door to the house was open. No guns in the house, they were stolen, my husband is lying on the bed gurgling, pink foam coming out of his mouth." Law enforcement personnel promptly arrived at the location. Darlene remained on the phone with the 911 operator, who instructed her on administering first aid to her husband. However, Darlene merely wailed, making no attempt to assist Keith. Keith Gentry, also 31, had sustained a single gunshot wound to the head. He was unconscious but clinging to life, and emergency services swiftly transported him to a nearby hospital. At the hospital, Keith was placed on life support. The town's residents were stunned by the occurrence, finding it incomprehensible who would target a devoted, loving father of 3. Police examining the residence discovered no evidence of forced entry. Furthermore, Keith's gun cabinet showed no signs of forced breach. It had been opened with a key. Neither locks nor window panes on the doors or windows showed any damage. Moreover, the weapon was discovered neatly positioned outside the house on the street. The scene bore no resemblance to a robbery. Officers sensed that something was amiss. They collected samples from Darlene's hands for gunpowder residue testing and summoned her for questioning. She complied. Darlene informed the interviewer that she had socialized with friends the previous night, and upon her return home at 8:30 p.m., she and her husband engaged in an argument concerning credit card debt. Darlene left to compose herself. Subsequently, she returned to Keith's house, and they reconciled. The children were unwell, prompting her to sleep in the nursery with them. while Keith slept alone in the main bedroom. She recounted waking to a noticeable chill throughout the house. Investigating the source of the cold, she discovered the back door wide open and Keith's gun cabinet completely empty. Upon entering their bedroom, she found her husband lying face down. Foam emerged from his mouth and blood from his head. She instantly seized her cell phone and contacted emergency services. Investigators found it perplexing that an individual with medical training made no attempt to aid her husband in such a critical situation. Even individuals lacking such specialized education typically attempt to provide assistance. Furthermore, the 911 operator clearly explained over the phone what actions were necessary. Yet, she took no action whatsoever. Throughout the conversation with the operator, Darlene maintained a remarkably calm demeanor, as if unaffected by the gravity of the situation. She initiated the call, not with an urgent plea to come and save my husband, but inexplicably recounted a detailed backstory. This behavior also heightened suspicions. Darlene responded by claiming, "I was in shock at the time and didn't know what to do. I was thinking more about the children." Remarkably, while at the police station, she never inquired about her husband's condition. During the interrogation, officers informed her that Keith was brain dead. They then transported Darlene to the hospital, where she signed the consent form to disconnect her husband from life support. Police personnel observed her unusual demeanor, noting that despite having tears in her eyes, she did not appear genuinely distraught. Later that same day, as the interrogation resumed, investigators began to pressure Darlene, hoping to elicit a confession to the crime. Understanding their intent, she invoked her Fifth Amendment right to remain silent and her Sixth Amendment right to an attorney. At that juncture, the police immediately ceased the interrogation. Darlene was released, and she subsequently retained legal counsel. Authorities continued their investigation into the case. They compiled an inventory of weapons, discovering that a .22 caliber handgun, a gift from Keith's father, was unaccounted for. Forensic analysis confirmed that Keith had been shot with a .22 caliber handgun. Darlene then consented to a search of her residence. Law enforcement conducted a thorough search of the entire house for evidence. Within the kitchen trash can, they discovered a pair of latex gloves and a .22 caliber bullet casing. Both the gloves and casing were submitted for forensic examination. The gloves tested positive for gunpowder particles and bore the DNA of both Darlene and Keith. The casing precisely matched the bullet recovered. Darlene's fingerprints were identified on one gun, while no prints were found on the others. Furthermore, earlier samples collected from her hands also indicated the presence of gunpowder. It was subsequently revealed that Keith held a life insurance policy valued at $750,000, a sum that potentially served as the primary motive for the crime. Darlene was in dire financial straits. 19 days later, Darlene faced charges of murder. She was arrested and incarcerated, though her confinement proved brief. Few could comprehend her involvement in such an act. Keith's parents had consistently held deep affection for Darlene and refused to believe she could be complicit in their son's murder. She and the children had resided in their home since the incident. Keith's parents cared profoundly for her and the children. Therefore, upon learning of her arrest, they magnanimously posted $50,000 bail, leading to her release. She once more took up residence with her husband's parents. Police frequently visited Darlene's residence, posing questions. Her exasperation reached such a point that she ceased answering the door, instead yelling and ejecting them. Darlene then left the children with Keith's parents and relocated to live with one of Keith's sisters, hoping to evade further police scrutiny. Investigators began to scrutinize Darlene and Keith's relationship, unearthing that Keith was deeply devoted to his family. To maximize time with them, he had relinquished a high-paying, desirable job for a low-paying position he detested. He harbored concerns that his wife had minimal or no involvement in the children's upbringing, habitually leaving them with Keith's nearby parents while she indulged in shopping and frequented beauty salons. Nevertheless, Keith conveyed to his parents, "I will never abandon Darlene. I love her immensely. She would have to be the one to leave me." Keith's brother reminisced that Darlene was perpetually discontent, disinclined to remain home with her family, even as his brother yearned for more family time, a desire she did not share. Instead, she would consistently depart. He aimed to be present for the children's baths and bedtimes. He epitomized the ideal father figure. He and the boys played soccer and wrestled, a truly happy sight. Despite diligent police investigation, no other plausible suspects emerged. Keith was a well-regarded individual with no known adversaries. No one desired his demise. Darlene, under suspicion and aware of the police's knowledge regarding the insurance policy, refrained from contacting the insurance company for payment. She remained confident of an acquittal at trial. Attractive and youthful, she bore no resemblance to a criminal. The prosecution's case rested solely on circumstantial evidence and conjecture. Growing weary of residing with Keith's relatives, Darlene reached out to her realtor acquaintance, Robert Pavelko. He was aware of the family tragedy and expressed surprise that she had sought his assistance. His astonishment deepened when Darlene requested he demolish her house, citing negative memories tied to the property. The realtor clarified that raising such a pleasant, well-maintained house was ill-advised and proposed she consider relocating instead. He presented her with an appealing plot of land situated by a pond. Initially, she favored the concept, mentioning that Keith had always desired a home near a pond so the boys could fish. A week later, Darlene contacted him, requesting the pond be backfilled. Robert grew suspicious and subsequently reported the request to the police. Investigators likewise found Darlene's eagerness to fill the pond peculiar, hypothesizing she might have discarded the gun into it and now sought to permanently conceal it there. Remarkably, a team of divers located the weapon in the pond merely 15 minutes later. The gun was submitted for examination, though Darlene remained unaware of its discovery. To apprehend her in the act, police enlisted the realtor Robert to cooperate with their plan. He informed her that he had learned about the pond's discovery and that, prior to filling it, it would first need to be drained. Darlene expressed concern and inquired about the draining schedule. Robert stated the pond would be drained in 2 days. Concurrently, 2 officers concealed themselves in the bushes behind the pond, equipped with a camera, and waited. Darlene, anxious that the weapon might be discovered, drove to the pond. Video footage captured Darlene, dressed in jeans, a sweater, and high boots, approaching the pond. She surveyed her surroundings to ensure privacy before entering the water and proceeding directly to the precise location where the gun had been recovered. She meticulously searched the area for several minutes, but, predictably, failed to locate the weapon. Dissatisfied, she exited the pond and departed. During the trial, the prosecution's case primarily hinged on Darlene's conduct subsequent to Keith's murder. All pertinent circumstantial evidence and corroborating proof were submitted. The prosecution contended that Darlene perpetrated the crime to finance her extravagant purchases. She was in urgent need of funds. As bills accumulated, Darlene recognized that her deceased husband's worth exceeded that of her living one. His $750,000 life insurance policy presented a solution to all her financial woes. Darlene entered a plea of not guilty. Following the presentation of a videotape in court depicting Darlene searching for a gun in the pond, she asserted that she had heard rumors of a weapon planted there by the true perpetrator and sought to retrieve it herself to prevent police from framing her. Darlene filed a motion to have the videotape excluded from the trial, but it was denied. Following 5 hours of deliberations, the jury reached a unanimous verdict of guilty. She received a sentence of 60 years in prison, with eligibility for parole in 2037. Keith's parents were granted custody of their 3 grandchildren. Pursuant to the court order, Darlene is barred from having contact with the children. Presently, 47-year-old Darlene Gentry steadfastly maintains her innocence. Several of her appeals have been rejected.